Well, now that we've confirmed the importance of the cerebellum and the importance of and power of eye movements, let's go and do some deep dives into some definitions, the triads, the big three, the cerebellar areas of interest, the semicircular canals, the three directions of motion, the three planes of otolithic movement, the three image stabilizers, the three foveal directors, as well as the three vestibular ocular reflexes, which is all going to come together as we put them all together. So first of all, the three big ones are vestibular, visual, and somatosensory. These are the things that give the neurological foundation of our human function here on the planet Earth. And the problem, the big talk about cerebellar functions, the basic is the ABCs: accuracy, balance, coordination. And the three areas that we're going to talk about of interest in the cerebellum are the vestigial ocular region, VOR, and the vermis, oculomotor vermis, the flocculus, paraflocculus, and the nodulus uvula. Now, when the anatomists first look at this, they actually connected it to the way it hung down, like inside of a mouth. So maybe to help us remember, the vermis would be that top of our hard palate, the top of the back of our mouth. Feel it? We feel the uvula, that little punching bag back there, and then the tonsils, if you still have them, off to the side. So this is the embodiment, how they describe these. This might help you remember. Arnie Shermesh and David Z, the great, really experts in the cerebellum, wrote a article showing what was known, and they, again, highlighted these three areas: the tonsils, high frequency, smooth pursuit maintenance and steady gaze holding; the nodulus uvula, again, the sustain, the otoliths; and then the hard palate, the FOR, for accuracy of saccades. And they made this comment, though, there's no absolute compartmentalization of function, but these are the three areas that work, and that's what we'll explore. So the semicircular canals of activation, we've heard this before. Pitch, yes, I will do better. Yes, the pitch, y'all, no, I won't get in trouble. And the roll, ear to ear. And this directionality is hardwired to eye muscles. And this does not come intuitively to me. And I'm hoping probably not to you. But let's go and investigate it a little bit, and we always can have a chart to go back to. The key thing is that each canal excites a pair of muscles, inhibits a pair of muscles on their action plane, and the vice versa. So there's a push-pull system going on. And let's talk about just basic stimulation of the canals. You know, to help understand this, I'm suggesting you put your hands up and move it back like a reindeer, and we're going to use this as a way of helping us direct our head motion and understand the function of this system. So we have a posterior semicircular canal, an anterior, and the one that works the most is the horizontal. We have the saccule that goes up and down, and the utricle that goes side to side. So here we've got our system in place. So let's stimulate a canal. So let's go ahead and we're going to move our head to your right, and that's going to be a stimulation on the right side, and to the left will be a stimulation on the left canal. So looking again, so we're going to do that, and remember this is the easier set, linked to the lateral rectus, and so as we think about that, let's move to the right, left. Okay. Both anterior canals, we're thinking of this one now, looking down. So let's look down, up, down, up. So here's both anterior canals working. And of course, if we look down to the left, it's this one. Down to the right is the other one. So remember, these have this angular motion also linked to the two muscles, or they're, again, for the push-pull method. Now the posterior, again, this one in the back, let's go ahead and work that back, down, forward, back. So we're not really thinking about what the eyes are doing right now. We're just thinking of what the canal does. So as we move back, those eyes are stimulated with motion, and the same is true to the left and to the right. So we'll get into the muscles later. The key thing is the two main planes, the right anterior, left posterior plane, which is the right anterior, left posterior plane. Okay, so that's the route plane, and the opposite is true with the other side, the LARP plane. And we'll investigate this further. This is just an overview right now. Let's just do this for fun, not thinking about, let's just use our nose and trace the different direction. Let's trace going up. This is a vestibular, or this is a VOR chart, by the way. Let's go ahead and stimulate our posterior, anterior, right, left, and then this is as we look at this, I think we'll leave that there for right now. Let's talk about the rocks in our head, the otolith system, and how they rock with our body. We'll talk about Bob Pepper, up and down, weave, side to side, lunge, straight and forward. So those who a boxer understand these movements, again, the three planes of movements, and these are connected, of course, directly with the otolith system. The utricles, again, doing the side to side, and the saccule up and down, and they both go forward and back. You have to think of those rocks are always pushing down, always causing stimulation, upregulation, and a right tilt. So again, a right tilt is the same as left acceleration. So these things have to be ferreted out as we work against gravity. And the interesting thing is, again, that medial side and the utricle has that push-pull and that little angle that goes up. So the saccule, we know up and down, but the utricle is really the one that has all this interesting information. So they're always on, and they're always connected, going back and forth in this push-pull fashion. And they have that lateral, anterior, and translational VOR, and this is going to be important as we go on today. And this is for you, Samantha, torsional movements. So the blue part is part of the counter roll, and so that's the part that does the torsional movement as we move our head. This is something we really haven't explored. Again, using the vestibular system to drive these type of intorsions that we notice when we do our eye binocular tests. So for the eye movement system, we have those directors. They direct the fovea to the object of interest by moving. Saccades, pursuits holds that image, and the vergent system and the z-axis. And saccades, again, they have those externally guided, and we have these higher functional saccades too, that because it's volitional, we can voluntarily do the memory saccades and anti-saccades. And this is so important to stimulate that, and a very cool tool to stimulate our frontal lobe. And the eye movement consists of really these two main classes. Just like we have a fast system and slow system and vergence, we have a fast system and a slow system. Of course, a slow system is the pursuits, and in the fast system is the saccades that are moving all the time, hundreds of thousands of times a day. Conwan, who just passed away, thinking fast, thinking slow. It's part of our neurology. On the pursuit side, just this point to remember that as you pursue to your right is a right brain activity, pursue to your left crosses over to the cerebellum on the other side, and we'll get more in depth in that in a little bit. But just this general set. And of course, the vergent system is our domain. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. just be aware it is, the z-axis is important to all these systems. So steady movement, and remember the flocculus, paraflocculus has a lot to do with this, to that foundational skill, which is holding an image still. And then the thing that we'll be spending a lot of on the vestibular ocular system, or the reflex from that system, the VORs, OKN system is a supportive system. We could spend a whole hour on that. We're not going to get into that today, though. So why is fixation so important? Because we know that it's just part of cognition. They seek context. They prefer meaningful objects, and they develop those cascade of cognition from early infancy on. And I'm going to start now. We're going to get into some more deeper neurology. And this came out just a few weeks ago. Dr. Raymond at Stanford, she did a great job as an overview as our first step. So let's listen to Dr. Raymond.
accounted for by this, but some of it can and some of it cannot. In particular, in the first part of the talk, I'll be talking about the vestibulo-ocular reflex. So vestibular signals via the mossy fiber granule cell parallel fiber pathway provide vestibular signals to Purkinje cells. The Purkinje cells can drive an eye movement response. So as shown here, if the vestibular stimulus that we deliver is rotation of the head about an vertical axis, so like a left-right head motion, that vestibular stimulus, so it goes left, right, this is the head velocity. The eye moves in the opposite direction, right, left. And then by pairing the vestibular stimulus with a visual stimulus we control, we can reduce the length increase in the VOR. So if we pair vestibular stimulus with oppositely directed image motion of an optokinetic drum, after about half an hour, we see a length increase in the eye movement response to the vestibular stimulus alone. If instead we move the visual stimulus in the same direction as the head, then we can reduce the length decrease in the eye movement response to the vestibular stimulus. So we can alter the amplitude of the eye movement response to a head rotation in either direction, an increase or a decrease. And if you record from the climbing fibers, which I did when I was in Steve Lisberger's lab, and compared responses during a bunch of different training conditions, the climbing fibers encode errors during training to increase the VOR and training to decrease the VOR. However, a number of lines of evidence suggests that this LTD, climbing fiber triggered LTD mechanism, contributes selectively to VOR increase learning and not.
So I appreciate, I hope that's a great overview. When I found that last week, I thought this is something that's a really good starting point for us all. So let's talk about the VOR. She introduced a great way. So there's really, I'm going to divide it into three categories, even though it becomes sort of problematic when people use different nomenclatures. But let's talk about the VOR for the horizontal. We'll talk about VOR for the angular and VOR for the translational. Okay, so the VOR for the horizontal, I'm going to suggest is the side to side, and that can be overridden or canceled. Angular VOR or rotational VOR can also be canceled or overridden. We'll use the terminology AVORX. And the translational VOR is a linear, can also be overridden, which is exciting. We'll discuss about, and that's the TVORX. So just remember that these semicircular canals go with motion, and the canal has to do with motion. The otoliths are always on. Things that I just learned was just really the doll's eye phenomenon. Remember the vestibular ocular reflexes develop in utero with really a 24th week of gestation, and the eyes start playing with this in the womb. And so the doll's eye phenomenon, of course, if you see in the ER show, even when somebody's unconscious, that ability for that eyes to adjust does not require higher functioning. There's more to that. We're not going to get into that here. The other way of looking at it as a therapist is actually X1, X0, X2 movements. So I'll just hit that right there. So an X1 movement with the head still and the eyes moving the target, that is what we call a pursuit. An XO, head and eyes locked in tandem. That's an X1 or a VOR cancellation. And an X2 is the head and eyes moving in opposite directions, as you saw them in that experiment. And we'll call that a VOR plus pursuit, okay? And that's just my nomenclature. I hope I'm correct, but it helps me to organize this. Now, this is something that I'm suggesting this is easy to find on the internet, something you have available. Just like the Parks 3-step test, this does not intuitively happen. I would hope that you would spend some time, but remember the different areas again, and now we have the right, down, anterior, left, posterior, LART plane, and then the idea that how the cerebellum is connected with both these sides. And here's a table that helps you understand as we move the nose to the right, which muscles are affected, nose to the left. And of course, very easy right to left. It's just the up and down. But isn't it amazing the hardwired nature of the canals to eye movements and eye position? And so here's again, another VOR chart that we can use. We can go to the right canal, left canal, down, left anterior, left anterior, right posterior, anterior posterior. And so I'll let you play around with that a little bit. It's very fun to find out how to make this work. And again, just going back, so we've got the posterior, anterior, horizontal, saccule that goes up and down, utical that goes side to side. I'm going to go ahead and share a few more videos that's going to maybe reinforce what you learned, but also some very unique applications. In this case, the applications with autistic children.
And so, in this reflex, there is another factor that is extremely important, so that the VOR, but you have something, the VOR that is here, it's the three-part loop that is extremely fast, as I said, but you have the cerebellum that will modulate the amplitude, so the gain of this reflex. And so, in a very specific part of the cerebellum has been shown to be very critical there, it's the flocculus. I will talk about floccular complex in the talk. And so, briefly, I know you know this one by heart, but basically there is two main excitatory inputs in the cerebellar cortex. One coming from the muscle fibers that will excite grounding cells, and also and parallel fibers that contact Purkinje cells. Purkinje cell is the only output of the cerebellar cortex and can also be contacted with another excitatory input that is the planning fiber, the famous error signals and teacher signals in scholars learning. That is one of the strongest excitatory inputs in the brain. And there is a gigantic literature showing that the plasticity between parallel fiber and Purkinje cells is critical to modulate
So he basically found the same thing. I wanted to point out a couple of things that Guy had to say. First of all, that how the vestibular system is more prevalent in children that we work with, as well as you notice that huge gain for children on the spectrum. And so anybody that works with autistic children, here's here's a great thing we can start working with and trying. And one other interesting thing that I wasn't able to share, he gave a very interesting talk and talked about how he had a friend that got some glasses and how he said, and it changed the gain. He said, boy, glasses can change the gain. There must be some way to fix that. I sent him an email about that. Isn't it exciting? You know, we're right at the forefront once we understand this benchmark. So again, how to gain up. We're going to do it all together right now. So we're going to gain up by looking at your thumb and moving things crossways, please, to the right, to the left, the right, the left, right, left. Let's gain down. Hands together. Hands together. Lock in. Right, left, right, left, right, left. Gain up. Left, right, left, right. Gain down. Right, left. I hope this, if you learned something today, you know how to increase your gain. And going to ask now, Chris did a great job of now confirming that with optogenetics. And you can see this, how you work with mice.
It is nice to see that when you're indeed learning these models, indeed you do see that the activity goes up. To reveal show you the prominence of the VOR adaptation, you see this owl in which you do not only see stability of the eyes but also of the head. So the cervical ocular reflex is also controlled here. You see that's a very powerful reflex and important to show you to keep the target in focus. Indeed, your gaze stationary. Now we can mimic this reflex in mice in our lab. So here on the right side you see a pupil moving with respect to the corneal reflections first in the dark. So then you measure the VOR, the reflex. And then during the training, for example, you can give an out-of-phase stimulation with the table rotation and the visual rotation. And when you subject the mouse for like half an hour to the stimulus and then put them back in the dark, then you will of course see that due to the increase in retinal slit, which changes the primary activity, then you will see the change in the gain, the amplitude of the eye movement. And there are many possibilities to vary this over time and space and so on, but I'm just taking this very simple paradigm for today. So here you see the pathways involved, so the brainstem, the clock of the Purkinje cells get input from the vestibular ganglion cells to the clock projection neurons, and then the Purkinje cells themselves target the clock target neurons that in turn then inhibit the abducens neurons so that the eyes can go to the lateral side. When you move, you have to the opposite side, let's say to the ipsilateral side. If you report, for example, on the left focus, and you turn your head to the right, then the eyes will, of course, move to the left, so everything is sort of stabilized in space as much as possible. And so this, we predict simple spike will go up during this kind of modulation. And when we recorded this was indeed what we saw. So you see that the gain can be increased. And when you report from the left population, you see that the number of spikes per second is increased very simply in relation to the gain. Now you can say, okay, well, this might be an epiphenomenon, but maybe it's just a sort of Ephraim's copy signal, is not a causal effect. But then when we use optogenetics to stimulate these Purkinje cells in isolation, as we did here in this experiment with Thai folks, then indeed, dependent on the strength of the stimulus, we could stimulate and increase the simple spike activity accordingly. And then based upon these different stimulus strengths, we could indeed get a different eye movement amplitude in a virtual linear fashion. And so this was really caused by stimulating the clockworks. So we think that an increase in simple spike activity really can be causal to an increase in the gain of the compensatory eye movement.
Yeah, and I've seen about maybe 200 hours of those videos, and I'm hoping that that might be helpful to have an expert explain it and actually see it, which is something I was not able to do, of course, because I wasn't there. So now we're going to talk about VOR cancellation. Again, the thing that does what? Gains down. It's such an important part of the calibration. And again, that cancellation can be angular or transitional or translational. And then in the otoliths, again, that perceived nature and acceleration and vertical elevating. So remember, the vestibular system is always pushing to try to get our eye muscles to work. Pushing, pushing, pushing. So they're up to 1 million action potentials that offset each other. So if you were to ask, what is causing eye movements? What is causing your eyes to move? What is the biggest neuro energy? It's the vestibular system yelling at each side, and because it's equal, though, they both stay stable. We'll again investigate that further. But now we're going to talk a little bit about more of the circuitry now that we've got past the three triads, the definitions. And so here's the three areas of interest again: the flocculus, the parafolliculus. Comment by Dr. Z. Unless a patient's seen within seconds of a neurological insult, any abnormality will not only affect the immediate damage, but the attempt of the cerebellum to repair it. The cerebellum is repairing immediately. Unfortunately, this has been used for eye signs just for diagnosis. Let's use those mechanics for treatment, not just diagnosis, as that's what the goal today is. As you've heard, this diagram, the one to remember is this climbing fiber that's the teacher of the one output cell, the Purkinje, that beautiful Purkinje cell. And that the retinal slip serves as an error signal conveyed by the anterior olive. Like Dave Marr said, the olive is the teacher of the system, of the cerebellum. These are important things to remember. We go really deep, but the key thing is to remember that slip. Remember, this is not directly from V1. This is through that second system. And so let's just do some basic, take a big step back. Neurology 101. The nerve does three things: gets input, decides what to input, and creates an efferent, an output, which is usually motor. And the body is oriented more for survival, or not performance. Just number one job is to survive. And the survival can be summed up in two properties, pattern recognition or prediction. And that's what the cerebellum does. Accurate prediction reduces threat, risk, and of course pain, be more successful. And activation, the brain's feeding pattern. Remember, it's just 10% chemical, 90% electrical, and that these things are all interconnected, and what wires together fires together. And the end result, of course, is the movement. As Sherrington said, that final common pathway is movement. The brain is this intending loom where millions of flashing shuttles weave a dissolving pattern, always a meaningful pattern, but never a body one. Again, eloquently stated. And of course, the example of the sea squirt uses their brain to locate a place to sit and then absorbs that brain. And we are working with the retina, the only part of the brain that can move. And we should look at the eyes as this coupled joint to be, particularly as we look at eye movement, it needs to be explored, enhanced, and mapped into the system. And when you have inaccurate brain sensory and motor maps, that can be assessed by immediate reflection of flexion or extension and the range of accuracy. So we can actually use the body to direct when there's inaccurate brain sensory experience. And of course, the importance of the cerebellum is that's where many of these MAMEs, we have our own little homuncula there, are learned and corrected and stored. I hope I've convened that. And when I was learning anatomy on old Olympus towering top, they took the cerebellum and cut it off. And so, it's fascinating that this was not something that I learned. That's why I'm excited. And I'm hoping you share that excitement. And the location is so important in the cerebellum. Again, it's in the pons area. But I always wonder, why do we need 3 different areas of, we have 6 eye muscles. Why do we need 3 areas of motor direction? Of course, the 3, 4 with the trochlea, and 6, the abduction. You think about that as we look at where they're located. Trochlea in the flexor, and the one down really low, number 6, the abducens, the extender. And of course, that's connected with the cerebellum, which is also an extender system. So let's look at the triads now. We'll do an overview. FOR, that hard palate, the top of our head, is used to accelerate and final deceleration of smooth pursuits. And they're also very closely associated with saccades, activate convergence, as we found out with Tara, and are associated with speed adaptation and learning. Flocculus, parathloculus, the one we've talked mostly about, gaze fixations, not eccentric fixation, but eccentric gaze fixations off to the side, maintenance of pursuits, more than stopping, and modifying the gain, as we've heard with the semicircular canals, as well as the VOR cancellation. And so it has to do with directionality and adaptation. And then nodulus uvula, more of the translational movements side to side, and controls that storage mechanism and slower AVRs. Remember, the slower AVRs, the semicircular canals aren't going to be involved. So this is where the otoliths kick in and downward pursuits. This is really a gold, this sheet. It's in your handout. Helps you understand as you go deeper of what we're talking about, and particularly the direction of where these particular areas help and direct and upregulate. So let's talk about the hard palate. It's traditionally associated with saccades, but it's actually gone, we know now for convergence. It's also involved with the fixation, those fine motor saccades that are associated with fixation, the microsaccades and positions. And so it tends to speed up the eye movements going in the opposite direction and slows it down coming towards it. So we can look at this diagram as we look at the deceleration towards it, acceleration down, side to side, and this interesting direction, very closely linked, of course, to eye muscles. The flocculus tonsils, again, we talked mostly about that, provides that inhibitory influence with the ipsilateral-medial and superior nucleus. Purkinje cells are closely connected. And remember, when it goes into the Purkinje cells, it is, again, the flocculus and Purkinje cells is the inhibitory. It smooths things up for the smooth pursuit. It's the smoother for fixation and smooth pursuits. The flocculus keeps the eyes moving in the opposite direction of where it's doing, and the anterior canals of VOR. Again, complicated. The key thing is that it's there to move the smooth pursuits and keep them running smoothly. And again, directionality difference from the FOR, going to the left and the right, and that maintenance of fixation off to the side, as well as you'll notice this rotational aspect of the flocculus. I've been working really closely with my friends at Z Health, again, as a trainer, and I was allowed to share this with you. I think this is going to make it a lot clearer as I run through this. Mike does such a good job. Appreciate him letting us share that with you. The other issue is that we need to realize that there's a directionality specific component to this, that the right and the left, again, make this difference, and they push to the one direction and not the other. The different directions of where to fixate as well as to where to pursue. And again, they're most sensitive to the diagonal and downward pursuits. And torsional smooth pursuit cells in the flocculus are most sensitive to pursuits to extort the ipsilateral lysosome. So there are some actual pathways that are there that we really haven't exploited in the flocculus. And the same is true when we think about the FOR, about those initiating. Maybe we should do some more initiation programs. I think we do this already. I'm hoping this is intuitively coming together. We'll be spending some more time with the navius and uvea. Just remember that they generate that otolith organs. They're always on, and they control the velocity storage mechanism to keep us so we know where we are in space with movement, and that with the triad of movement, and they're also more closely associated with slower, because again, the semicircular canals can't be on if it's moving slower, and more downward pursuits. So let's go ahead and answer some questions that we had at the first. We had the new patient that came in with that diagonally left and down problem, and we wanted to use more of a volunteer program. So we need to have the eyes go left and down. So that means the nose, my little chart there, up and right, which means that is the right posterior, right? So let's do that. Right, go up, my nose up and right, makes my eyes go down and left. These other, for question number 2, you got a boxer that's going up and down. Okay, so we know it's bobbing, so that's got to be more what we're thinking about, the saccule in that case. And so we need to do something to optimize her. And so what anterior canal? Well, a slow drill for the anterior canal followed by an upward smooth pursuit. And so remember, as we use our anterior canal, that's the same as right going down and then down further. Okay, so, and the third question, we have somebody that's walking with their left shoulder and hip rotated. That means it's we'll get into that in a second, a little further, but that means that there's a cerebellar problem, and we want to do some motor stacking for the input for that individual. So what do we do for cerebellar activities? We do complex non-linear movements, and in this case it's the left shoulder. So because the pursuit is on that side, the flocculus is looking to the left. So the left so we're fixating to the left as we're doing complex left activities, will help stimulate that area of interest. And that's it.